Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. How are you? You're getting better as the day goes on? You're becoming more learned scholars of Lewis and Clark, are you not? You are, indeed. And I see you've moved up for this next presenter, just as I asked you to do. That's great. Did you find that windscreen microphone? No. All right, if you find that little tiny windscreen, I will give you a little Lewis Clark pin. All right, good. So we lost a little windscreen thing. So if you see a little spongy thing beneath your feet around here, just pick it up and give it to us. Okay. So we are the Corps of Discovery 2, and we are a traveling mobile exhibit. And we travel the country telling the story of Lewis and Clark. And of course, to do that, we have some props. We have a junior-sized keel boat back there. We have a wonderful dugout canoe right over here, and that is provided by the Bureau of Reclamation with Steve Morehouse. We also have a Plains Teepee exhibit, and we have a 35-minute audio tour, and we have indigenous games provided by Harry Anderson back there. So if you want to, girls, if you played the games yet, please do. They're right back there. You can scream and yell and hacky sack and have lots of fun. So those are back there. And we also have a free art exhibit right over here in building number 2, and that is photos and drawings of interpretation done by the children in the area about Lewis and Clark as well. And here are the Tetimini Voices. This is where things get exciting because we have a dialogue of different speakers and a variety of different people. And they come from all over the country. We have poets, we have scholars, we have musicians, we have dancers, all interpreting their story of Lewis and Clark and their perspective. And coming up next, we have Gloria Wells, and she's from the Little Shell Band Chippewa. She's a cultural leader, and she's going to tell the story of Buffalo and their perspective. Let's give a warm welcome to Gloria Wells.
Thank you very much, and whoa, that's a little louder than what I had thought. Am I drowning you guys out? Okay. Well, first of all, I'd like to say welcome to the Tent of Many Voices. I would like to thank you all for being here and at this presentation and for participating in such a historic event as this 200-year, I call it a celebration. So I thank you very much for coming, and I want you to know that I'm very, very honored to be here as an Indian woman from the state of Montana. I would also like to take just a minute to thank the people who have put together, produced the Tent of Many Voices. All along the Lewis and Clark Trail, the crew have worked extremely hard in tearing down the equipment, resetting it up, tearing it down, resetting it up. But the thing that impressed me the most about what they've done is they've offered us Native people an avenue to voice our stories. And that hasn't been heard too much here in Montana. So I thank them very much for that and hold them in high esteem. My name is Gloria Wells, and I am a member of the Little Shell Band of Chippewa here in the state of Montana. Our band of Chippewa people are the most easternly tribe of Chippewas in the United States. Our nations, like many, came from the woodland. I hate reading off from this. I try to do this, and I'm not going to do it. I just can't. Our people came from the Woodland Lakes area, the Great Lakes, Minnesota, Wisconsin area, as did many of the other nations, the Sioux Nation. Many of them came out here following the buffalo herds, because as they began to become less and less and less on the eastern bench, they were pushed over to the western side, much like our native people. Before I start to talk about the buffalo, I want to talk about two other things that are very near and dear to my heart. And the first one is Native American spirituality. And I will tell you about that and tell you how that ties into the use of the buffalo as I go on. The second thing I would like to give honor to are the 8 nations that are here in the state of Montana. And for those of you who are not aware of the Indian nations, I'd just like to give a quick rundown of who they are and where they are. And while I don't need a cheat sheet to remember this, bear with me. We have the Flathead Nation that's up in the Missoula area, Salish Kootenai tribe, and that would be the northwestern part of the United States. Then if you come across along the Canadian borderline, you run into the Blackfeet Nation. They're right on the Canadian borderline. It's Blackfeet in Montana, it's Blackfoot in Canada. Of the Blackfeet Nation, there are the Piegan and the Bloods. Then you come a little bit more east and you run into the Rocky Boys Reservation, which is Chippewa Cree. They're around the Haver Box Elder area. As you go further east, you run into Fort Peck and Fort Belknap, one being Grovant, and the other being Assiniboine Sioux. They're in the Hayes Lodgepole area and then over at the Fort Peck Reservoir. As you drop southward, you will run into the Crow Nation, which is about an hour south of Billings. The Crow people for the state of Montana, they were the first reservation Indians for the state of Montana. And their reservation stretched between Livingston and Gardner, Montana. That was the first Indian reservation in the state. Then next to the Crow, the United States government put their favorite friends, the Northern Cheyenne, who at that time were fighting enemies. And we believe now and then that was a part of the ploy. I think they thought if they just put us all together, we would annihilate one another and take care of the whole issue. But we didn't do that. And then we have my band, the Little Shell Band. We are the only non-federally recognized tribe of Indians in the state of Montana. In 1863, we owned 10 million acres of land that stretched from Havre, Montana to the Minnesota-North Dakota borderline. I jokingly say when our chiefs were hunting in Lewistown, which had not yet been founded, the United States government appointed 4 trustees, Indian agents, to oversee our people and to present them with the food and the housing materials and the educational materials that they promised us if we would stay on the reservation. During the course of that 3-month hunting trip, the United States government appointed 4 Native American or non-Indian trustees to be our Indian agents at our land base. During that time in 1863, the United States government made a treaty with the 4 Indian agents who were then taking care of the Little Shell Band of Chippewa people. Those agents took 10 million acres of our land and they sold it back to the United States government at 10 cents an acre. The going rate was $1.25 to $4.25 an acre. It's called the 10-cent treaty. So if you have a computer, get on the computer and Google the 10-cent treaty, and you'll come up with the Little Shell history. In 1863, our 10 million acres of land was reduced to 7 square miles. 7 square miles of land. So that means over 5,500 Indian people were placed on 7 square miles of land. One of the Indian agents at that time wrote a letter to the government, to the President of the United States, and said, if you do not send farming tools, seeds, herds of cattle, you will see our prisons fill with native people from this band because they will be forced to steal just to survive. No truer words were ever spoken. When I think about our ancestors and the struggle they must have had to have gone through in hunting, in preparing food, preparing shelter, clothing all summer long, just to enable them to survive during the winter, my heart grows very, very sad. The first thing before I go into the buffalo that I want to talk to you about, along with the tribes, is some of the commonalities that we had as Indian nations. Because each Indian nation stands alone, stands separate. A lot of people like to group us together, but each individual nation has their own traditions, has their own way of spirituality, has their own cultures that were passed down thousands and thousands of years. There's one common theme, too, actually, that I want to talk about today, that are the very basis and the core of our peoples. The first thing that I would like to touch base on today is our traditional spirituality. And I will show you how that ties into the buffalo in a short period of time. One of the things that all the tribes that I have just described to you had in common was their traditional spirituality, their traditional pipe carrying ceremonies, their Sundance ceremonies, the sweat lodge ceremonies. Those were carried on well after the reservation era. A lot of the native people took the spiritual ceremonies we like to call underground. They had to hide them from the United States government because the government had come through and outlawed every one of them. And while this is kind of a sobering story, and it is, it's a tragedy. However, we were still able to, through tenacious spirit and through the gift of Grandfather, the Spirit, he gave us the will and the strength to keep those ceremonies going. I have a quick, funny story that I want to interject because I want to bring a little bit of light and laughter to this, but yet still tell the story. One of the ceremonies that we had traditionally, and that most tribes had, was called the Keeping of the Soul ceremony. And that means when an individual passed away, their belongings, all of their belongings were taken and they were put into a bundle, a hide, whether it be an elk hide, moose hide, buffalo hide. Their belongings were put into a bundle and they were rolled up and they were set on a tripod that faced east, just 3 lodge poles outside the camp, outside the lodge of the individual whose family he belonged to. The 3 tripods came out. The bundle was placed on those tripods, and for 1 year that bundle remained there. It was kept there for our nation. At the end of that year, we had what you call, the ceremony was called the Keeping of the Soul ceremony. And you had 1 year to keep that soul, so to speak. You could cry over that soul, you could weep, you could grieve, you cut your hair, you went through the whole grieving process. But at the end of that year, you had to quit grieving so that individual who had passed could go on to the other side. That was it. You could not continue to cry for that individual. You had to quit your grieving process and move on. What a wonderful psychotherapy we had going on back then. All right, this is it. This is the end of the year. You've got to quit now and you've got to move on. What a wonderful way to handle death. So when the United States government outlawed the Keeping of the Soul ceremony, have any of you seen the Far Side cartoons? I just think he could do such a wonderful job with that. Bringing an enforcement agent into the reservations and saying, all right, I know you have some souls around here. Don't try to hide them from me. I know you have them and it's against the law. But you can imagine how silly it was. How could they monitor something like that? How could they, so you kind of have to bring, my opinion is that you have to bring light to some of that. Because we still kept our ceremonies. We kept them ongoing. And at the end of the year, whether there was an enforcement agent there or not, we did release the soul spirit to go to the other side. Our pipe ceremonies, our Sundance ceremonies, our sweat lodge ceremonies, each and every one of them have been kept and continued on. And I feel very blessed that we have that. When I travel back east to the tribes in the eastern, from New York all the way down to Florida, I go and I visit the reservations there, and I speak to the people about their traditional ceremonies, their traditional culture. And I've asked, I remember one band specifically, the Choctaw from down in Philadelphia, Mississippi. I asked Chief Philip Martin, I'd like to see some of your traditional regalia. And much to my dismay, they brought out cotton dresses with kind of can-cans underneath. And then I really realized just how blessed we are out here to still be living in teepees, to still be doing our ceremonies, our dances. And I just hope and pray that if you get one opportunity this year to go to a powwow or go and meet Native people, learn a little bit about their culture, just that one specific thing. They don't have that back east any longer. We're blessed because from the plains on, we've kept those ongoing. So with that in mind, I have to say that the northern plains and the Pueblos down south and the West Coast Native people, to me, are farther advanced than the eastern coast Native people who've lost the very core of what they're about. Our spirituality has been the saving grace for our people, and it remains so today. We know that whenever there are issues or problems, through the pipe ceremony, if those problems are taken to the pipe, then answers will come very soon. They'll come directly from Grandfather. We believe there's only one God, and we all have that in common. There is one book that I would like you to at least take a minute to look at. It's called Black Elk Speaks. Black Elk was a Lakota Sioux chief, medicine man, who knew absolutely no English. But if you read his book, he had to have an interpreter to put this book together. If you read his book, Black Elk Speaks, and you read Revelations from the Bible, you will be amazed at how much our Native spirituality coincides with the Bible. Now, having read both and having grown from that and having the light come on for me and saying, look, this is how we're alike. Black Elk talks about 4 directions, north, south, east, and west, and 4 colors, red, white, black, and yellow. Isn't that strange that this Indian man knew not one bit of English, yet knew about the 4 colors of the people of the world? Just like the Bible, Revelations talks about the 4 horsemen coming from 4 directions, and the horses were red, white, black, and yellow. So one of my goals along the way is to try to help to educate myself as much as I can about the encounters that Lewis and Clark had, but I also want to educate others about what we're doing right here, right now, today. And spirituality, to me, is the main gift that we've been given from God, from Grandfather. That's the number one gift. So if I can share a little bit of my spirituality with you, then I will be able to consider myself a great success. Even if I don't get all to the buffalo, I can still consider that a great success. My prayer goes something like this. We use 4 different pieces of plant life to burn, to pray with. We use sweetgrass, sage, cedar, and tobacco. And our beliefs are that as we light that sage or sweetgrass, that our prayers, our words, land on the smoke, and our prayers are carried skyward to Grandfather. We call that process smudging. Many of the churches that are alive and running today use incense in the same manner that we do. So again, look for the likenesses. With the spiritual ceremonies that we have passed on over the course of the years, the buffalo was the main mammal used in the ceremonies. The eagle was also held high, very high in esteem, but the buffalo was our main source of subsistence. Pre-Columbia days, many authors have quoted between 60 and 100 million buffalo roamed this country. By 1890, there were documented 750 buffalo left. Some of them, a large portion of them, were at the Bronx Zoo. I have a couple of pictures here that I want to hand out so that you, or just pass around, so that you get an idea of exactly what transpired, because it is so, and I will pass these around through the audience, and as I'm speaking, just go, you can continue to pass them on. It's a small picture. I wish I would have blown it up so you could have gotten a better idea. But this is two gentlemen standing on top of thousands and thousands and thousands of buffalo skulls that were taken for the most part just for their tongues. At the same time period when the buffalo were being shot off the railroad cars, over the many numerous wagons that came, and only the hides and the were taken, much of the meat was just left. This was the same time period when our Indian people were being put on reservations. So with that in mind, I'll just start over here and pass this picture around. I think you'll be amazed. The buffalo had for us many, many uses, too numerous for me to be able to list them all off the top of my head, so I did bring a little list here, or at least I think I did. Of course, we used the robes for clothing. For winter count, it was a way for us to write down our traditional history. We used the hooves and the sizing, the scraping from the hides for glue. That's what we mixed our paints with. The list goes on, and I'd like to read some of this off to you because you just won't believe how every part was used. We've kind of put this in a somewhat of a chronological order. For the hides, of course, it was used for the lodges, paint bags, pouches, pipe bags, dresses, belts, lance covers, leggings, shirts, breechcloth, bedding, winter robes, cradles, moccasin tops, dolls, coup flag covers, quivers, teepee covers, gun cases, the hair of the buffalo. And I'll pass this around because I want you to see the hair. This is actually one side of the face of a buffalo, short hair. This is down around the shank of the leg, on the top of the leg. The buffalo hair was used for headdresses, saddle pad filler, pillows, rope, ornament. In other words, as you made a shirt, you would hang buffalo hair locks off from your shirt. Halters. The buffalo hair was braided to make a complete buffalo hair halter. And medicine bags. The tail is the buffalo tail. It was used as a medicine switch. I got a kick out of this one, a fly brush. I don't know who thought that. Fly brush. Lodge exterior decorations. The old buffalo hide teepees, the tails were left on. So as the teepees were rounded around the top, the tails were left on. It was such a beautiful sight. You'd start with one lodge here, the tail, and then come around with 3 lodges in the tails. And I was so blessed because I've brain tanned many, many buffalo, but I got to see on this Corps of Discovery in Great Falls, one gentleman from the Blackfeet Nation had the traditional buffalo hide lodge with all the tails on it, and it was simply gorgeous. It was just beautiful. In the front of the lodge, where the door came, the 2 tails came and tied together. It was just a wonderful, beautiful, beautiful lodge. The hooves, like I've told you, and I brought a couple different sizes because I wanted you to see just the size of their foot. Deer hoof, buffalo. Huge, aren't they? And you know what? If there are questions along the way, just raise your hand. If you have questions, because I'll go ahead.
The word that I didn't understand was the word cover.
Could you repeat your question?
Well, I'm not really. You just.
Coup flag.
What is
Coup.
that?
Okay. Traditionally, a Native American, an Indian, traditionally found more strength and prestige in his tribe if he counted coup on people. Okay. Well, much like our drum covers would have been, or our parfleche would have been used as a suitcase, it would have been like a suitcase covering or a... That would have been actually on the stick. When I think of a coup flag cover, I think of those folding chairs that fit in a sack about this big around, about this same difference. It would have just been a coup stick cover that would have covered the whole thing. Also, most of our ceremonial things were kept wrapped up in bundles, and those bundles were only opened once a year to either add to or and there was a huge ceremony. It was the bundle opening ceremonies. So exactly, that was it. That's exactly it. Good. So how long were you at Great Falls? Did you go? Good. Yeah. Were you able to see anything down on the where they had the Perot? Did you go down with the Corps? Good. That buffalo hide teepee was there. Yes. It wasn't that beautiful. When we talk about this buffalo hide lodge, I cannot express to you how extremely difficult it is to brain tan buffalo hides. Let me tell you a little bit about brain tanning. I'll just touch lightly on it. How are we doing for time? Okay, I'll hurry. Brain tanning process. Every animal has enough brains to tan his own hide. Every hide is white. It's not this color. This is a dyed commercial hide. Every hide is white, about this color. I brought 2 pieces of brain tan. This is brain tan deer. I wanted you to be able to feel the softness and feel what this is like. The brains of the animal are used, mixed up, a buffalo horn used with 1/3 of the horn being buffalo fat, poured in with the brains. That conglomeration was mixed together after the buffalo hide was raw-hided, which is what this form is. The hair has been taken off and it's been fleshed. You then take the brains and you rub it into this raw hide, and I'll pass this around because I want you to feel just how thick and how heavy. Well, and you can see what the buffalo hide did when I made this drum, and I didn't give the tension all the way around the same amount of pressure. It just took this frame and warped it. This is what we use the shields. The part of the back that we use the shields. This hide was so thick it would deflect the arrows. So I wanted you to see this. Now, the brains are rubbed into the raw hide like that, and then left for a couple of days, and then they are rubbed over a tree or anything sharp that would kind of give it a little edge, or a little edge that you could rub it across and soften it with. That process is unbelievably hard. 5 years ago, south of Livingston, I put together a buffalo teepee encampment. And I thought I was going to do things the old way. So I brought my trusty scrapers, and I brought my buffalo leg bone scrapers. And after the third day, I said, bring on the metal. This is not working. I can't get this done. It was extremely hard. The buffalo hides are so heavy when they're wet that it's very, very difficult to pick them up. Most of them were cut down the middle, and this was all women's work. Then a beaded strip was added down the middle so the two halves could be sewn together, whether that was hair on or hair off. Let me pass around a couple of things here. This little soft one being deer hide, brain tan deer hide. This one being brain tan buffalo hides. The smoke that you smell on this, it was smoked to waterproof it. We didn't smoke things for color. We smoked them to waterproof it. So as you pass this around, I'm sure you'll be able to smell the smoky smell of it. Deer, buffalo. And then, of course, I'll pass around a couple of these tools that we used to work on these hides with. And I'll never do it again, but at least you will have gotten an idea of what we used to do this process. I also wanted to pass around a couple of these hammerheads because I wanted you to see the difference in. This would have been a head smashed in hammerhead, very heavy. That means they would have actually used this to corral the buffalo and smash their heads with these. This would have been used as a war club. But I wanted you to feel the difference in how hard that would have been to very heavy. Isn't that something to pick that up? Okay, now let me finish off. The horns. The horns were used for cups, fire carriers, powder horns, spoons, ladles, headdresses, signals, and toys. The meat. I have a problem with this one. Every part was eaten. And I do have a little cartoon from the far side where this one little Indian is walking in front of four others, and he said, I'm not sure what this is, but I think it's the only part we didn't eat. But there was not a part we didn't eat or utilize. So every part was used. The skin of the hind leg, that was used for the most part, which would have been something like this, for the leggings that wrap around the individual's leg. The rawhide, in the drum form, everything. Containers, clothing, headdress, food, medicine bags, shields, buckets, moccasin soles, rattles, drums, drumsticks, splints, cinches, ropes, belts, bullet pouches, saddles, horse masks, lance cases, armbands, quirts, bull boats, knife cases, stirrups, thongs, and horse ornaments. That rawhide was so important to us. If you didn't get to go to the Great Falls show, I am so sad that you didn't. I hope that you'll be able to come out to Three Forks and meet with the Corps of Discovery. A couple of those members are actually ancestors of the real Shannon that was playing, Josh, and the real Clark that was playing. So if you can possibly get a chance to get out there and meet them, I would love that. They had quite a time stretching that buffalo hide over that iron cage that they brought up from St. Louis in trying to make a buffalo bull boat. It sank. We still haven't figured out where that was, and that was part of the iron. Any questions? Are there any questions?
If you have a question, just raise your hand. I'll come to you. I think you have a question, did you not, ma'am?
When you said about the rock, was that carried all the time as the tribes traveled, or were they left, or?
I have to say that as far as many arrowheads and hammerheads as we have found out in the Missouri River Breaks area, I don't think they left them behind on purpose. And because I cannot imagine working so hard to nap an arrowhead or fashioning a hammerhead such as these and then leaving them behind. I think I think that they were lost in battle or lost in utilizing them for the buffalo hunt or for the deer hunt or elk or whatever it was. But I don't think that they left them behind. We did, however, leave a prayer behind for every animal that was taken. There was always tobacco or sweetgrass or cedar, sage, something left behind back to the earth to give thanks for the buffalo. So as far as the tools go, I wouldn't think that they would have wanted to leave those behind.
There's another question over here.
Do you know anything about the Penobscot Indians from Maine?
I do.
Wonderful.
I do. Are you a Penobscot?
No, my husband is a descendant from them. And we're curious about that tribe.
Well, I have to tell you, I have been traveling back to the East Coast, and in doing so, they have an organization called United South and Eastern Tribes. And what they're second in line to the National Congress of the American Indian. They are a group of the most economic developed nations in the United States. But they come from Maine. I have a friend who is he is the University of Maine Native American Studies professor. I can give you his name after this, and your husband can get in contact with John Bear Mitchell and learn all about your people. Good for you. Absolutely, absolutely. I would encourage everyone, I don't care what nationality you are, go back and do that Alex Haley thing. Find your roots, find out exactly what you're about, where you come from, and what your culture is about.
Question over here.
Do you know about the North Carolina Cherokee?
Some. There are many nations of Cherokees.
Yes.
There are, yes.
I'm about an 8th North Carolina Cherokee. And my father was a forehand Cherokee name. I don't have enough in me to really, claim a lot, but it's there.
I just love this because I see people in the crowd who, in Montana, I grew up here. And so I just love it that you are honoring your native side, because for so many years our families were told not to tell. I don't see how you could not tell I'm not an Indian. I mean, I don't think I could get away with it. But many of our people were told to keep quiet about it, claim Italian, claim anything else other than Native American spirituality. So it just makes my heart sing to see the people wanting to get back to where they're from. Good for you. Find out about it.
I'm originally from Oklahoma, but I know of some the Yuchi tribe there, but I don't know where they originated. Do you? Have you heard of them?
I don't, but I bet I can put you in touch with the Potawatomi Nation there, and Mamie Rupnicki is the tribal chairwoman, and she will help you in any way, shape, or form that she can to help you find your people. Good for you. Good.
Got a question over here.
I was going to ask you about the Potawatomis. I believe that was where my grandmother came from, and you mentioned people keeping quiet. Her mother had died, and she was the oldest of 7 children, so she was helping her father, who was a white man, raise these children. And later years, when I would ask her about this Indian ancestry, she'd say, shh.
That's exactly it.
She was afraid at that time, when her mother died, that they would be put on reservations or split up the family. Do you know about the Potawatomis?
I do.
And also, you mentioned something at Three Forks. Will you tell us the date on that?
Three Forks, the Corps of Discovery will be set up at Three Forks. Help me on this one. I think for the next 3 days. Then, pardon me? They're coming back, though. So they've already set up there, went back to the gates of Townsend, and then they'll be back toward the end of the week. There will be an individual here with a schedule that can tell you, but I know we'll be back over there. I think they're going to be back at Three Forks tomorrow afternoon at the headwaters. We can find out, can't we?
We may have a schedule. I don't know how detailed it is, the front desk, but it may not be up to the moment. They may have a website, too.
Right. Yeah. And you can go on there and find out exactly where they're at. Yes?
Can you speak your native language?
I cannot. That is one of the many things that we lost when our tribe was taken away. However, Henry Anderson, who's over here at the traditional games, he can speak our native language, and we have been able to preserve that, as well as the other 7 nations in the state here. Thank goodness. We're very blessed. Yes?
You mentioned the Penobscot.
Yes.
How about the Nipmucks out of Massachusetts?
I haven't heard of that. But again, I can put anyone in touch with any of the tribes back east through United South and Eastern Tribes. They're huge conference people. They know those tribes back east. They know them very well. It was a little difficult for me to go back there because there were so many nations that I hadn't heard of. To think, there's 575 federally recognized Indian nations right here in the United States. There has been 280 that have been completely annihilated, and there's 270 that are waiting to regain their federal recognition. Those are approximates. Yes.
Why were the Little Shell people denied recognition?
Well, there were so many issues behind that. First of all, the horrible thing about that, when that 10-cent treaty happened with our people, Gail Norton still has that money in her bank account. That was in 1863. In 1964, it drew, for 100 years, 101 years, it drew 0% interest. Zero. In 1964, our money began to draw 4% interest when the going rate was like 11 or 12%. And why aren't we getting recognized? They wanted us to prove that we were an entity inside of a community. And so when the anthropologist came up to help us with our federal recognition, she's from Cal State Long Beach. She came up, we traveled to Lewistown, to Butte, to Great Falls, Hill 57. We traveled to Havre. 25 of our family heads got to join the Rocky Boy. That's how it became Chippewa Cree as opposed to just Cree for the Rocky Boys. We had to gather all of this material and prove to them that even though we were out here living in the non-Indian community, that we were still a community within ourselves. So that meant going back for school records. And I think the funniest thing I found was the 1902 Marr County census, because Marr County at that time, it wasn't Fergus County, it was Marr County. So they came up with the 1902 Marr County census. And this I was so pleased to find this, but I found such humor in it. Again, the United States government, federal government, wanted us to prove that we were an entity in an entity. And when we found the 1902 half-breed census, I went, yes! That means they didn't even count us. But now I finally figured out where that 1 little, 2 little, 3 little Indian thing came from. I have that one down pat now. Excuse me. We're having to go, and it was those kinds of documents. We had a half-breed school in Lewistown that just Indians went to. We had to go back through all these historical records and come up with all this information and resubmit it to the Department of Interior for a federal recognition. I think we're going to get it. I do. I know the tribes back east are pulling for us very, very much. I have some issues regarding some of the management of our Native American funds through the Department of Interior and our own management, much like I have issues with what our president is doing with our funds. It's just on a bigger level with him. But I don't ever want to create, and we've been, one of the legislators from the area that I live in was quoted as saying, we don't want to give those Indians their federal recognition because if we do, they will just create another ghetto-like atmosphere and a welfare society. Well, I own a few houses in this state. I don't think that I would ever move to a piece of land that the United States government gave me back for land that they had taken, 100 years ago, 150 years ago. I would never personally do that. I would like to see a land base happen for us for one purpose. Well, actually two, culture and education, those two things. Culture, and education. There's over 5,000 of us enrolled and another 4,000 waiting to be enrolled. So there are a lot of us.
We maybe really don't have time. It's about almost 10:02, so we have but let's give a wonderful applause.
Thank you.
More questions for Gloria. I'm sure you could answer a few in the back over there after you. Yeah, good. All right. And basically, we have more speakers coming up next from NASA, and he's going to be doing stuff with satellites and GPS findings, kind of like going along the Lewis and Clark Trail, but doing it through satellites. So it's really wonderful stuff. It's kind of fascinating. It'll be 4 o'clock, and we'll have up until 8 o'clock. So, some other exhibits in the area.